So I'm going to begin introducing myself. So my name is Dr. Daniela Salazar. I am one of the clinical psychologists at the LightHouse, and I am so pleased to be talking to you all about a topic that is so close to my heart, which is emotional resilience. Now more than ever, we've been dealing with COVID for a little bit over a year now. So it's been a little bit draining to say the least. There's been such changes, and the environment has been so different. Now meetings are always going to be virtual or have been virtual for a while, and it's getting tiring. And so for me, it's so warm to feel that you guys are here present today, yet to another virtual meeting. But emotional resilience is that ability, as we're going to speak later on, to understand how hardships can bring value and how we can actually learn from these uncomfortable feelings and uncomfortable circumstances and actually, think about the learning that we can get from all of these negative circumstances that we've lived. So, with no further ado, I want to share my screen with you all. So, bear with me for a second so we can get started with today's presentation. Perfect. So, I think all of us can see the screen okay. You can make my face bigger or smaller as I present today's topic. So we are at the LightHouse, a mental health and wellness center down in Sakim. So it's quite central for a lot of us. It's a beautiful setting where we want you all to feel at home, a little home away from home when you come to see us. And we have a different range of services that we like to offer to the community. So one of these services is these talks that we give, where we are hopefully giving a lot of education to the community, letting them know that we're here to support. We're hopefully opening the door to destigmatizing mental health through these talks. We also offer therapy for all different ages, from prenatal ages all the way to family settings. And we have about 32 clinicians that are able to do this. So we have psychiatrists, we have clinical psychologists, we also have speech and language therapists for children, we have occupational therapists for children. So all of the services around well-being we have at our clinic. We also hold the MHFA certification for the UAE. This is the mental health first aid training. Just like we would have physical first aid, we also offer mental health first aid. So what to do when someone's having a difficult time, when someone's struggling emotionally, what to say to a colleague or to your teenage daughter when they're struggling, and how to guide them to the appropriate help. We're going to be discussing different mental health illnesses in this course, and you will, at the end of the course, become a mental health first aider. This is actually one of the most important courses that we've seen over the last year and a half for all of us to have, since we are surrounded, or we're part of a community where we're all struggling and we're not operating at our 100% as before. So it is so important to hold everyone's feelings, to understand what they're going through, and to maybe be able to guide them appropriately to someone else that can help them. We hold the biggest grief center in the UAE. This is actually how the LightHouse came to be in the first place. So it is through our different support groups around grief that we are very much a part of everyone's grieving process. We feel that we're all living in a constant state of grief since Corona started. We're grieving the vacations that we didn't do, the family events we're missing, the family that we haven't seen in a long time. And so talking about it in group setting has been very therapeutic. Research has shown that actually group therapy is sometimes more effective than individual therapy. So we hold a range of different support groups at the LightHouse for different difficulties, not just around grief. So with no further ado, I want to present to you all our team. Our team, it comes from different places, different psychological approaches. So there's always going to be a match for you. Now, one of the things that I want to encourage you all, if you are not very familiar with psychology or with therapy, is I would encourage you all to come to us for a mental health well-being checkup. This is a 30-minute checkup, just as if you would a physical checkup to see how your overall physical health is doing. This is an overall assessment on how your mental health is doing. So, this is the opportunity for a clinician to give you some strategies to motivate you to keep doing whatever you're doing, to give you some resources that might support your mental health, or might suggest either a group therapy or individual therapy if needed. This is the beginning of your therapeutic process. If you're here today listening to this talk, it's because we care about our mental health and we really find that there's some value in giving ourselves that time and that self-care. So this is one way of doing that. So for today's agenda, with no further ado, we want to understand what are these overwhelming times about. It's not just about coronavirus. There's a lot more that's going on behind the scenes that I will be talking to you about today. And then we will be discussing in depth some of the resilience strategies that we have learned through years of research and with our clients at an individual level that have proven to be effective. Everything that I will be talking to you all about today has come from research. It's not just me saying it works. It's years of investigation and actual clients that have tried these things that have really said that there's been a positive impact in their life. Now, there is a chat box in this webinar, so please feel free to write your questions, your concerns, your comments about the presentation. If I have answered your question throughout this time, if I could ask you to delete your comment. So at the end, I will only answer comments that I have not talked about in the presentation. And hopefully these will be around emotional resilience. Like I said, we have all different types of topics that we discuss in other webinars. So stay tuned for those as well. So why are we overwhelmed? As humans, we are actually wired to detect danger. Anxiety is a feeling that we have had over hundreds and thousands of years as a messenger. All of our feelings, at essence, are messengers of what is going on in our surroundings. And so, for the longest time, if we go back to caveman times, anxiety was a messenger of danger. And when we get that message of danger, we're able to react and we're able to do something about it to keep ourselves safe and our family safe or our tribe safe. So the idea of being easily triggered by negative events makes sense. We're always trying to keep ourselves safe and our loved ones safe at essence. So when we look at this triangle, this is a triangle of basic needs that we need to feel that there is safety. So our physiological needs need to be met. That's the base of everything. So we need to feel that there's food, that we have air, that there's shelter, that there's water, that there's clothing, that there's enough sleep. So all of these things will regulate our mood. Then we have a second layer, which is our safety, our employment, right? So is my health okay? Is my job security there? Am I having the right network of people that will help me feel that I have a support system to rely on? Because at the end, we're humans and we're social beings and we need the support of others. There's actually been numerous studies that have said that one of the key factors of mental health illnesses is the lack of social networks. And we know that in Dubai, being expats, that's a huge factor. It's easy to go into a dynamic where we're just working and we're coming home and we're working and we're coming home and we don't feel that there is a social network that we can rely on and we're really far away from family. So all of these different layers of safety, when they're removed, we have a higher chance of developing anxiety or any mental health illness. Then we have the third layer, which is a sense of belonging, a sense of friendship, intimacy, sense of connection with others that is going to give us another layer of safety. So when we look back specifically in the last year and a half, COVID has just been the backdrop. But what has happened due to COVID is that these layers have been slowly removed for some of us. We didn't know at some point if our job was secure. We didn't know if our family member's job was secure. We didn't know where we were going to live in the next few months for some of us. Our friends were moving away from Dubai. We didn't feel that there was an opportunity of freely going to the supermarket during some months. So all of these things started letting us feel more anxious. Now, when we have fear and anxiety, and I'm going to describe the difference between these two playing together, that is the perfect recipe for chaos. So, fear is when we have an adamant threat in that moment. So, when you see a lion, for example, let's say you're in the wilderness and you see a lion, you have fear, right? And that feeling is telling you you're in danger, you're an absolute threat, that tiger is giving you an absolute threat, you need to run away or you need to fight back. Now, anxiety is the fear of feeling fear, right? So we are anticipating negative events. And most of our thoughts when we are thinking about anxiety start with what if? What if I don't do well in this presentation? What if I'm not liked? What if I am not getting the grade I need? What if I'm not passing this test? What if I'm not doing well with my colleagues? What if I'm not a good leader? So all of these what if questions are related to anxiety. So when we have an actual threat and we have all of our fears around this threat and the implications of this threat, we have the perfect recipe for chaos. Now, anxiety, like any other feeling, because it's a messenger, it comes in a spectrum. So we have mild anxiety, and this might be a person that, does not believe in COVID, goes around kissing everyone, there's no socially distancing at all whatsoever. There is no concern about getting vaccinated, all of these things are happening. Just there's no sense of risk. And then there's the opposite spectrum of anxiety, where it's high anxiety, where we don't go out of our houses. At some point we start hoarding food, we are isolating ourselves completely. There is no other way of being in contact with us because we are fearful for our lives. So within this year and a half, I'm sure that we've all oscillated a little bit between the mild and the high anxiety spectrum. Now, with anxiety, we have two different coping mechanisms. One is we fight back and we get aggressive and we get dominant and we get extra defensive, or we retreat and we avoid and we try to escape any of these circumstances that give us this feeling of anxiety or unsafetyness. Now, all of these feelings at the end of the day, this whole year, there's been a lot of feelings of grief, a lot of feelings of displacement, a lot of feelings of disorientation around how our life is going to look. And this lack of perceived control has been playing a fundamental part in our anxiety and our development of a sense of unsafetyness. So, what can we do? We've understood the reasons behind this uncertainty, this overwhelmness, and I want us to start thinking about resilience, not only about the ability to jump back from uncomfortable situations or emotions, but I want us to equivalate resilience to emotionally intelligent people. We want to become more self aware of our emotions. And emotionally intelligent people actually have higher demanding jobs. They're more successful in their relationships. They have higher self esteem. They are able to problem solve better. They're able to overcome difficult situations because they're more attuned to themselves. And this is one of the hardest things that we're going to have to learn in life is how can I be aware of what I'm feeling and think about what I'm thinking and take perspective and decide whether this thought is serving me or this emotion is hurting me. So being emotionally intelligent is going to take a little bit of our time and effort. And I hope that today it will give you some guidelines on how to do that moving forward. Now, this isn't at all a replacement of therapy. This is just some tips and some strategies that if you try to do a little bit of these, you'll definitely see a huge change in your mood and the way that you're perceiving situations around you at the moment. So the first thing we want to begin with is our mindset. Our mindset of where we are at the moment. We know, that we are in this context that's different from 2 years ago. However, our mindset, it's still operating on 2 years ago. So we have the same levels of expectation from other people and from ourselves. We have the same level of expectation of our feelings and our resilience as we did 2 years ago. And the fact is that times have changed, and therefore our mindset has to change. We cannot continue operating from 2 years ago with the same level of expectation from our children or from ourselves and from our partner as we did 2 years ago. It is unhelpful to think this way because we are always going to be setting ourselves up for failure if we do this. So it is so important to understand that whatever is happening right now and whatever change in your environment you're noticing you're having is actually helping you change your mindset or ringing a bell that there needs to be a change in your mindset. So instead of thinking that these situations or circumstances are happening to you, we want to actually say, this is happening for me. This is telling me that my mindset that I have been operating with for the last 2 years or a year and a half in COVID is not helping me, and it's actually causing me a lot more distress. So therefore, I need to find a way to change that mindset and actually think about what is this what am I learning through this? What is not working from me in the last year and a half that I need to change? And maybe this is the first question that you have before you go see one on an individual level and you talk it out with a therapist and you reflect about how that change is going to come along. Or maybe this is a question that you want to ask your peers or your family members. What is it that I'm doing recently that it isn't helping me? Is it my high expectations of myself and others? Is it the lack of flexibility that I have over my work and over my routine that's really causing me a lot of distress? What is going on at the core of things? And because we know that our thoughts are made out of words, right? And our words are the way that we communicate with each other. We also communicate with ourselves through words, through thoughts. Thoughts are basically a conjugation of words that we give meaning to. And when we are not very mindful of the language that we're using, we unconsciously are reinforcing the anxiety cycle and the low mood that we might be struggling with at the moment. So, using words like I'm socially isolating can be quite heavy. These words carry on a very negative connotation. How about you say, I am staying safe, or I'm staying indoors, or I'm choosing to not go out for a couple of days just to be safe with me and other people that I care about. You're taking ownership in your language. You're stepping away from a victim language and more to an empowered language. It's very rare that we do this consciously, and therefore I'm asking you that this is going to take a little bit more of an effort from your side to realize what is the language that I'm using. And you're going to realize that a lot of it comes from a victim role and less of an empowered individual. Same goes to whenever you say I can't travel. I can't travel anywhere. I'm stuck in Dubai. There's nothing to do. Okay, I'm choosing to stay in Dubai, or I the safest choice for me to make right now is to stay in Dubai because I want to stay safe, or because my family needs to stay safe, or whatever reason is at the bottom of the decision that's pushing you to stay in Dubai. So you're being able to analyze your language in a different way so that it doesn't feel as heavy and it's not necessarily making you feel more anxious. What we know from a cognitive behavioral therapy model is that your thoughts, the way that you think, the way that you frame your thoughts, has a direct impact to how you feel, and then has a direct impact on how you act. So if you're able to either change the way you think to a different narrative, or you're able to soothe those really discomforting feelings, more likely than not you're able to behave differently and have a different mindset at the end and different outcome to everything that might be going on at the moment. Because our minds are so set up for detecting negative events, because we know that back in the day detecting negative events ensured our life, we want to make sure that words that have a negative connotation are the ones that we're going to stick more attention to and more energy to. So we want to avoid using words like don't. Don't worry never sits well to anyone. Don't do that. Don't think about this. Don't say this. All we're going to want to do is do the opposite of what we're saying we shouldn't be doing. So we want to make sure that we are again making sure our narrative is working for us. So instead of saying um, don't worry, how about we say, huh, let's listen to some music. Let's focus on our attention on things that we care about. Let's actually spend some time thinking about what we want to plan out for the future, in the next year, instead of thinking about how you can't go out today. So you are reframing your thoughts in a way where you are avoiding the use of negative adjectives, because that's what our mind is going to be very much zoomed into. So that was the beginning of the cognitive challenge that we are talking about. Now, I actually want to go back a second and talk a little bit more about your thinking process. Now, from a cognitive behavioral model, we know that there are different thinking mistakes that we make. And we're not aware of these thinking mistakes because we make them unconsciously. They become automatic most of the time. And one way of recognizing your thinking mistakes is knowing what they look like. What are they? So I recommend all of you after our chat to go to Google, and I would like you to put on Google thinking traps or cognitive distortions or thinking mistakes. And you're going to get a list of about 10, 12 thinking mistakes that are very common and that drive anxiety or drive low mood. Some of these thinking mistakes are jumping to conclusions, or when we mind read and we think what other people we think we know what other people are thinking, or we go into black and white thinking where we're not able to see a gray in between and we're going into opposite ends of the spectrum in our thoughts. All of these thinking traps are enabling and actually reinforcing the cycle of anxiety and low mood. So again, this is how we are changing our language. We're recognizing our mistakes and our thoughts, and we're able to detach ourselves from negative adjectives. So building your inner house means being able to sit with discomfort, right? A lot of times we're running away from discomfort feelings that make us feel, yeah, uncomfortable, right? And why do we do this? Because we have this notion that happiness is the state that we always need to look out for, that we always need to go into. But the truth is that happiness, like any other feeling, is temporary. And we think about the most important relationships that we have in our lives, our parents, our family members, our kids, our cousins, our friends, we can also remember that within these relationships, they haven't all had happy moments. They've all had moments of anxiety, moments of anger, moments of grief, but yet we still consider them to be the most important relationships in our lives. Therefore, our concept or an idea of happiness needs to change. Happiness, I would like it to be from now on for all of you, having a rich and meaningful and purposeful life where you're able to give your life meaning. Even if it's uncomfortable, it has a meaning, it has a purpose, it has richness to you. And richness, not necessarily talking from an economic perspective, but richness in the way that it makes you feel fulfilled. It makes you feel like you're doing the right thing based on what you feel is right for you. So when you are taking perspective and analyzing, why is it that I'm doing all of these things, and it's tied to a value, you're able to build your inner house and actually give a little bit more sense to why changing the narrative and the language is going to be so important. So how do we, apart from this cognitive restructuring that we're talking about and discussing what we care about and our values, is our behaviors. How am I going to, through my behaviors, make the most of it through this struggle, through this time of uncertainty, through this hardship? So the first thing is we need to have a routine. We are operating 100 times better when we have a set schedule of the things that we want to do. And all of these things need to be around your social interactions, your work life, your family life, your personal growth um, part. So we want to make sure that every day there is a little bit of something that goes along these different areas. If you're working at home, I strongly suggest you do not wear your pajamas when you're working at home. This is coming from the basis that there is something called enclosed cognition, where we are actually emotionally triggered by how we dress. So if you were to go to the office, you would be wearing a suit, you would be wearing smart casual clothing, and you would be owning your part, owning your job. But if we're in our pajamas and our loungers, we are just not taking a shower when we're working, we're feeling lazy. We're not up to par. Our attitude is more careless towards our job. So at least if we're not wearing our suit, we're just showering, we're looking a little bit more dressy for the day. We're also having a space in the house that's allocated to work. So I strongly suggest not working in your living room and in your bedroom. Make sure that you have an allocated space, and you all know that by now. But most importantly, I encourage you all to claim your mornings and your evenings. And this means for 30 minutes in the morning, right when you wake up, the first thing should not be watching your phone. The first thing should be doing something for you, where you're fully present for those first 30 minutes or 20 minutes or even 10 minutes if that's a bit of a hassle. Where you're drinking your cup of coffee, you're laying in bed, you're really concentrating on the aroma, texture, temperature of your coffee. You might be doing some stretches, you might be doing some breathing exercises. You're just claiming your morning, you're starting your morning just right for you. And then at nighttime, 20 minutes, 10 minutes before you go to bed, the same thing. You don't have your phone, you're detaching yourself from your email, you're not necessarily in service of others, you're in service of yourself. So that means that you're having quality time with your family, you're doing some breathing exercises, you're taking a hot shower, you are avoiding being on the computer or on the screen. And this will make a huge change because you're taking ownership to a part of your day. So this brings me to the things that you can control versus the things you cannot control, right? And the inner circle, the blue circle, are the things that you can do, and the outer circle are things that you can't do anything about. So we know that we can't do anything about other people's behaviors, the way other people think, the way other people feel. We cannot change. Our change begins with us, how we react, how we feel, and how we think. All of this means that actually our happiness is within us. And our high expectations of other people and ourselves is what needs to start changing for you to have the right mindset during this time. So we want to actually allocate actions to our roadblocks. So if it's the action of, I'm not working out, I'm not being as healthy as I would want to, let's put an action to that. So maybe we are going to buy a Fitbit, and we're going to start just keeping track of our steps, because we are going to be measuring how many steps a day we have. And that action in itself, just buying it on Amazon, is empowering. It gets you started. You are showing up for yourself. Whether that doesn't mean you need to run 5K every day or 10K every day or be a gym junkie, not at all. This just means that you're showing up for yourself with the minimum requirement, which is buying an Amazon Fitbit just to boost up your health. And this is the same thing with everything. Is how can I show up for myself in this roadblock right now, and decide what that action is going to be and do it. But it's not just cognitively that we need to make all these changes or in our behaviors. It also comes from our physical health. There's a mind body connection that we always need to be mindful of, and the way that our body is feeling will affect how our mind is feeling. So this means that our immune system needs to be bumped up, not just because of the situation that we're living in, but because 90% of serotonin, which is a happiness drug that is developed in your mind, is actually being developed in your gut. So how can I take care of my body? So let's take the probiotics, let's eat right, let's actually exercise a little bit more, not in the gym, just making sure you have the right amount of steps a day. Hydrate yourself if you can. It's Ramadan, so make sure you're hydrating yourself at night or early in the morning if you're observing Ramadan. Taking your supplements of Magvita or probiotics. Magvita helps you sleep very well, so make sure that you're doing that, and make sure that the sleep that you're getting is quality sleep. When you're on your phone or on a screen, you are absorbing blue light, which is sending a message to your brain that is daylight. It is not allowing you to fall asleep as you would like it to be. So melatonin, which gets released when it's dark, is not getting released at the moment when it's thought that it's day. So let's make sure that we are putting down our phones, putting down our computers, and really taking care of how we are sleeping. There's an amazing book called Why We Sleep. I highly recommend you all buying this book or just reading about it, or the audio book. It teaches you the benefits of sleep. We used to think that it was just a dormant state in the 1970s, but after that, we've realized that it has been associated to so many important parts of our life and really reduces the amount of a lot of different mental health illnesses as well as physical illnesses. And it really promotes learning and memory consolidation and mood stability. And the way that we are, protecting our sleep and our use of social media is also with the limiting the amount of our, news and our negative WhatsApp interactions and Snapchat interactions that we might be having. More than ever, we're being bombarded with information everywhere, coming from our employers, line managers, families, with emails, with text messages, with social media. So it is our job to actually put an end to that. That's why claiming your mornings and your night is one way, but actually also putting these timers on and really sticking to them, or going to the gym without your phone, or maybe lunchtime or meal times for there to be no phone policy. Or if you're going to read your news, make sure that you're reading these news at midday so it doesn't turn off, it doesn't put off your day if you're learning something negative in the morning. Usually I would say limit it to 1 hour, one time a day, and you read one local newspaper, one global newspaper, and that's that. So you're not overwhelming yourself with the amount of information that you're putting in. And then making these conscious connections, right? We are social beings. We're always looking for a sense of belonging. We're always looking for a sense of reassurance, safety with our networks, with our work colleagues, with our peers, with our family. So it is so important to know who you want to relate yourself with. Emotions are contagious, and we're finding that our friend is very anxious. That anxiety is going to creep up on you. So we want to make sure that we want to protect ourselves, and it's healthy to keep that distance for a little while, or making sure that you are in a fuller place before you hang out with that person that's going to be a bit negative or toxic in your life. And therefore, we need some boundaries on toxicity. So you might actually have to leave some WhatsApp groups, or you might have to mute some people in social media, or you might have to actually say that it makes you feel uncomfortable when all this negativity is being shared, so that you're protecting yourself. Because at the end, self-care is an act of service. It's actually not selfish. So make sure that you're giving yourself that priority. And we want to make sure that we're staying within 3 to 5 people a week, whether that's family, whether that's your husband, whether that's some friends from abroad, because it's easy to get lost with all the different responsibilities that we have on a daily basis. And staying disconnected will then become the norm. And then more feelings of disconnection arise, and mental health illnesses will arise after that. And your house is going to be your best friend, your safe place. A lot of times we just use our house before as a hotel. We used to come, work long hours, sleep, then come out and leave our house. It wasn't a place where we really enjoyed being for a lot of us. So now more than ever, it has become our sanctuary. So it needs to be decluttered. It needs to smell nice. Buy flowers, buy aromatherapy or essential oils so your house smells always fresh. Make sure that you're decluttering, and make it a point now this Ramadan to clean out your closet and give away clothes that you don't wear, and really making your room specifically the place where you are feeling rested and it looks pretty, and you're investing time and money on it. It's more than it's you cannot imagine how important having a nice safe environment when you get home is going to be for your mental health. And because anxiety is the fear of the unknown, right? Fear of feeling fear. And we're always starting our thoughts with what if. Staying close to the present moment is the hardest thing, right? This practice of mindfulness is so difficult. And we usually misinterpret the use of mindfulness as meditating with your eyes closed and oming. But actually, mindfulness is a way of just sticking to the present moment, noticing that your thoughts are actually leaving and then bringing it back to whatever it is that you're doing. So even when you're writing an email and your thought took you somewhere and you're able to come back to that email, that's mindfulness. You're aware that you went away and now you're coming back. Now, this is going to be very much more useful when we're doing an activity that gives us pleasure, whether it's eating, whether it's breathing, whether it's listening to an audio around meditation and staying close to the present moment. This is going to be so important for us to just realize that when we're feeling flooded, when we're feeling triggered, our actions are going to be unhelpful. What we're going to say is not going to be the best version of ourselves. So we need to stop, recognize that we're feeling anxious, recognize that we're feeling scared, and then try to ground yourself with some mindfulness. The smallest step that you can take into feeling less anxious. So it's not about the long-term goal. It's not about those big target behaviors that you want to achieve. It's what is the smallest thing I can do right now that is in my control to help me achieve that soon. That's the approach that we want to have. Highlighting the positive is one of the hardest things because we're wired to highlighting the negative because that has kept us safe for hundreds of years. So having a gratitude journal, or actually a journal where we're writing down the positive things that happen through your day, is so useful. So making sure that you are retraining your mind in a way where you're realizing that not everything that happened in your day was crap. Not everything was sad. Not everything was angry. There were some things, such as a shower that you took, or a nice brownie that you ate, or a nice conversation that you had with a friend that was meaningful for you. And keeping that closeness to those moments will allow you to continue overcoming some of the negative events that might happen that are outside of our control. So to end, I want to share some applications that maybe some of you already know, but if you don't, I will highly, highly, highly encourage you to download. All of these apps have different groundings and different mindfulness exercises that can be useful for you. But apart from that, I want to share with you the different Instagram handles that we have, where we share lots of resources on anxiety management and mood management. So the Lighthouse Arabia on Instagram has a great amount of resources, quotes that are great. Our managing director, Dr. Salaha Afridi, has her own Instagram, so you can find her as Dr. Salaha Afridi on Instagram. For those that are parents and are anxious and are feeling overwhelmed, there's also Light Heart Parenting, which is a great source to get information and tools and resources. And if you like TikTok, then there's also the Lighthouse Arabia on TikTok with small snippets of help where you just need a booster for your day. So all of these are all the resources online that you can use, that you can go to. And I hope that you feel you're not alone in this process. I find that sometimes knowing that there's a place where you can talk, a person that knows is going to listen, is so relieving, and that's exactly what we need just to feel a little bit better and a little bit more at ease and grounded. But overall, we know that this ability to be resilient stems from being emotionally in touch with your feelings and developing your emotional intelligence. So I hope that this talk was useful. It's been my pleasure to talk to you guys today. And please don't hesitate to reach out, to write me an email. You can find my profile in Lighthouse Arabia's website, and I'll be more than happy to give you the guidance that you need and the advice and anything that you might need from me. So this brings me to the end of our presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly, and I am more than happy to answer some questions around emotional resilience that you might have. I recommended a book called Why We Sleep, which is highly recommended. And another book I might recommend at the end is called Permission to Feel. This is a great book to really just learn how to be in contact with your feelings, listening to them, understand how these feelings are messengers, and really be a good resource to promoting our emotional intelligence. So, once again, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure being with you guys today. And if you have any concerns or anything, please let me know. I'll be around for another minute or so. Okay. I don't see any questions coming by. So this will be the end of our talk today. Again, thank you so much. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of the afternoon. Bye, everyone.